for the special meeting for the Board of Selectmen for Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, great. All right. So in terms of for Selectmen's updates, I was fortunate to attend a conference last week that was focused on early learning and early childhood development. It was really an interesting conference, and I'll probably come back to the board in maybe a month's time and highlight some of the interesting takeaways from the conference, as well as some opportunities we might have as a town to create some new thinking around this or possibly policy implementation. So I'll come back and give more detail and perhaps talk about some of the ideas that came out of that conference. Otherwise, not too much to report. I know that we've had, if there's any members of the public, we have some outstanding requests on ARPA funds. I've pushed that off until our September 23rd meeting because we're gathering information on a few others that we still need some background information. And then also we're expecting the bid proposals on Garvin Point to come in next week. So I thought it would be best that we tackle ARPA once we have like all the information and can just make some final decisions, because we're on a timeline where we have to have the funds, POs, basically purchase orders issued by the end of this year. So just so any public members here are, wondering the status of that, that'll be at the next meeting at the end of September. And with that, I'll turn it over to any liaison reports or selectmen comments. Anybody? No?
One.
Okay.
I'd like to give an update on Academy. The building committee continues to meet regularly every other week. And there's a certain quickening going on now as we're getting ever closer. Over the course of the next month, the Academy project will be in front of a number of the town's land use committees. And over the course of the next month, the design process will finish up. And we will be going out to bid towards the end of October. The committee's calendar continues to be on schedule in that there should be information available for the community and the Board of Selectmen about December 1st in terms of what contractors had bid to carry out this project. So the planning process is wrapping up now, and the end of the planning part of the schedule is in sight.
Great. And maybe I'll just do a quick reminder that tomorrow we do have our 9/11 remembrance ceremony. It's at 5 o'clock on the town green, and that's always a very somber but nice ceremony, I will say. And we have the flag display there now, 300 American flags. So just want to also put a reminder out to the public that if you're interested, that starts at 5 o'clock tomorrow on 9/11. Any other comments or board member questions?
I have one announcement.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Got a frog in my throat. So the Madison Youth and Family Services is recognizing National Suicide Prevention Month by offering the town a virtual walk this month of November. Residents are welcome to join in the effort to bring awareness to the issue of suicide and how to support their loved ones. National data tells us we lose someone to suicide in the U.S. every 11 minutes. This is intended for Madison residents, but anyone can sign up. To sign up, you can visit the Madison Youth and Family Services webpage or email Justin Ziegler at zieglerj@madisonct.org. Participants can walk, bike, skate, run, any movement on their own time and pace, 11 miles or 11 minutes each week. During September, participants can track their progress, learn about suicide prevention, and win some prizes. So more to come on that.
Cool. Great. Okay. With that, we'll move on to citizens' comments. We're all virtual today, so are there any hands raised, Jeannie? I don't see anything.
There are no hands raised.
Okay. All right, great. All right, there'll be an opportunity at the end of the meeting if anybody wants to make a comment relating to the agenda. All right, moving on. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Moved. Second.
Any comments or questions? With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right. Item 6 passes unanimously. Item number 7, discuss and take action to accept Ed Lent as Madison's first poet laureate as recommended by the E.C. Scranton Memorial Library.
Moved.
A second? Al seconds? Okay. All right. So basically this is a follow-on conversation, and I've invited up Allison from the library as well as Ed. And I think you'd gotten in your materials kind of the draft proclamation that the town would be proposing when we do this. And then the application materials that had been submitted. And we talked about this, I think, in June. And I know at the time there wasn't like a lot of details about what we didn't have a draft proclamation or anything like that. So, so with that, I turn it over to, hello, welcome, Allison and Ed. And maybe Allison, if you could just spend a moment on process. So this is going to be for a 3-year term, and then what your library process is in terms of the appointment. That would be helpful.
Sure. Thank you, everybody. So I'm so delighted to work with Ed. He's an extremely talented artist, painter, as well as poet and writer. And the town of Madison is rich in the arts, in painting and writing and theater. And Ed approached us and volunteered to be the first poet laureate for Madison. There are many, many towns in Connecticut that have poet laureates. I think it's close to 70 now. And so Ed would be the inaugural poet laureate for 3 years. At the end of the second year, we would begin the process of starting to look for the next poet laureate. There would be an application process that would be run through the library. And Ed has sent me a great inaugural list of ideas of things that he'd like to do, as far as having poetry slams at the library, having thematic poetry months, doing poetry in the little park that's across the library in front of 24 Wall outside, doing a townwide poem together. And so we've just been really impressed and really excited, and we think it's a great fit for the library, bring the community together, all ages, and celebrate poetry.
And maybe a Madison historical bicentennial poem.
Absolutely. That would be really cool for our anniversary year. Yeah.
Any other further questions for Allison or Ed?
Well, I feel like we're meeting a rock star here. I've never met
I know.
a poet laureate, so this is kind of a big deal. Exciting to meet you, Edward. Do you go by Ed or Edward? You're on mute.
You're muted. Yeah.
Famous Zoom habits. Hey, hi, nice to meet you as well. Also, everyone, and thank you.
And he goes by Ed.
We're gonna all be rock stars.
I see a Madison poem in our future. Fantastic.
It will be a community event, I promise.
Yeah,
oh, that's great.
Well, and I think maybe having Allison coordinate with my office, maybe we can have some sort of launch event or whatever, for us, and that would be great. So any other questions from the board members? No?
Thank you for stepping up and doing this. This is pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
thank you. Thank
Thank
you. It'd be
Thank
a great
you.
addition. Excited to see how this this shakes out and all the new exciting things that we can bring to town with this. So okay, with that, I guess all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, excellent. Well, there you go. You'll get the proclamation, and then we'll get this moving, and we'll maybe try to get some updates, and maybe occasionally invite Ed in for a special poem for the Board of Selectmen. So
That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
great.
Thank you very much. Talk soon.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks,
thanks.
Allison.
Bye-bye, and
Thank
congratulations.
you,
Yep.
Allison.
All right, great. Well, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is an update on the Neck River Elementary School building project. And I kind of added this a little bit last minute because I thought we had a lighter agenda, and I thought it was important that we get some updates. We're going to have some updates on other town projects at the next couple of meetings. So Graham was kindly So the superintendent, I don't think is here or anything. And this is more, I grabbed Graham and I said, hey, why don't you give us an update? Because obviously we see a lot of exciting things going on at the school. I love the drone videos and all, all that stuff that the school districts have been putting up on the website. But obviously one of the biggest topics is, where are we on the budget and are we good on our timeline? So I will turn it over to Graham, if you wouldn't mind. I did get that slide you sent. Do you want me to show that, or do you just want to talk to
I
it?
can just describe it in general.
Okay.
It's not, so I appreciate, thanks for the filling me in on a slow news day here. And moving the meeting early so we can all watch the debate in the comforts of our own home. Or depending on how you if you got a drinking game plan,
Bar or a bar, right?
drive carefully. That's so yeah, so that and then
I don't think I'd survive that.
So as I recall, when you charged us back in the like 2 years ago or so, one of the charges was to come back and keep you updated. So this will suffice as a update on where we stand. We are about halfway through the construction schedule, 15 months. So we're about 7.5 months in. For those of you who, been able to visit the site or drive by, obviously the steel's up, the walls are going up. Everything, I can gladly say, is on schedule. So everything, the pre-purchased equipment that we purchased, the electrical equipment that we purchased in advance, should be showing up in a few weeks, which is key to maintain the schedule for our completion in May. So the idea is to close the building up, late this fall, so we can work through the winter on the finishes and turn the building over in May. We still need to bid the furniture and some of the technology stuff, since we typically hold off till, later in the game. So that's on schedule. So we have that money allocated. So far so good, knock wood. I don't want to jinx us, but it appears we're on schedule. Relative to the budget, we are on budget, and potentially we have contingency, and we also have the money that was previously provided to us to cover some potential contingency and cost overruns. It looks, I don't want to jinx it, but it looks very likely that we will be able to return that money to as we promised. And we said before we spent any of that money, we would come back to the Board of Selectmen and, ask you, if, to spend it. But it appears right now that we're not going to need that money, and would, probably be able to turn it over to you. That being said, you never know. You never know till you don't know. But, we're out of the ground. The most likely problems are going to be something to do with the ground. And there was some, topsoil issues we had to deal with that were covered in, out of the contingency. But other than that, so far so good.
And just so, for members of the public, a year ago, we had transferred money, which we were able to do. The public approved a certain total bonding amount, and we shifted some of that money from the new Polson renovation project to the new school project. And I'm forgetting how much that was. I should know this. How much was
$5 million.
5 million? That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
3.45. 3.5.
Right.
Roughly
And
3.5.
and just also to remind, the purpose was that the school, the state construction authority or whatever, requires that all the funds be appropriated for what was being estimated at the time. And we knew that we were hoping bids would not be at that level, but we had, costs have been all over the place, obviously, with the inflationary environment we were dealing with over the last couple of years in the construction market. And so that was a precautionary measure to make sure that we had everything on paper to cover the project when it went out to bid. Fortunately, the bids came back in a more favorable way, right? And those bids were received. When were those bids received?
Maybe 9 months ago.
Yeah, it was a beginning. Okay, so
It was early, beginning of the year. It was right about New Year's, and
we started to benefit, I think, a little bit from some of the slowdown in inflation, and also it was really the supply chain issues, right, with COVID started working themselves through, and so we kind of benefited from that, and we saw some of the costs come in at a lower amount. So
timing was good. Yeah, I mean, January is a good time to bid. Contractors are hungry. They want to build their backlog for the summer, and it was a desirable job, for contractors. It was a nice, clean, not a fussy renovation. So I think we, multiple things, came together, provided a good bidding environment for us. Knock wood. Yeah.
So I just want to, I was giving it that background again, if people are watching, and that was kind of the history behind that transfer, and with the caveat that the board made that if it was not necessary, rather than just taking the money and buying further amenities or whatever for the new school project, we wanted to see that return to Polson, because that's a longer term project, right? And even though we felt comfortable we had enough there, because this is going to be protracted over multiple years, because we're renovating a school, we wanted to have that extra buffer. So when can we get the money back, Graham?
Steve, question of clarification. So we created budget headroom in the project so that it could move forward. The dollars we're talking about are really was the promise of future borrowing, right? It wasn't actual cash in an account. It was, we were shifting some of the debt that we were expecting to incur from Polson over to the new school. Do I have that wrong? Or is that right?
No, I think that's correct. In terms of bonding, we wouldn't have borrowed the money until we needed the money.
All right. So yeah, so I mean, given the fact that we had previously decided that Polson didn't need it, and now it looks like the new school might not need it, this could be an opportunity to reduce the borrowing by 5 million potentially.
But I think that we will be learning from the Polson project, though, that they're going to probably want some of that money, because they've gone in and done a deeper dive, with what is going to be the most appropriate electrical or HVAC. And then the other thing is the timing of how you stage the project. It's going to be quite costly if you try to do this over a period of time versus doing you can't shut the school down, right? So anyways, that's for a future conversation, I think, Bruce. And that's what the Polson committee will be coming and talking to us next month, or I think the end of this month, about kind of where they are in their project. But I think the important thing is that the school is moving forward. They're honoring the commitment that money will be kind of given back to the Board of Selectmen. We are authorized for a total bonding amount, right? And we have the ability to shift it back and forth between projects. Or if we don't need it, we don't bond for it. Right?
Well, right. I think we were, I guess I'm trying not to lose train of the track of the thought that we were pretty assured that the Polson project could spare the money. So I guess my concern is, what if something turns, the Neck River School says, oh, geez, guys, you know what, we really do need that money. Thanks for setting it aside from us. Is Polson now short? Is Polson now not able to do its work?
Well, they're in the process of figuring out the next phase, just like with the new school. Now they have bids, right? They have real dollars. And this is the kind of conversation we've gone through with Academy. Polson hasn't gone out to bid yet. They're working on estimates. So we'll find out where they are in their process. But the good news is that the expectation is we're going to be getting most of that $5 million back under the board to transfer it back.
Right.
So
No, I agree. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
That's fabulous news, and many thanks, Graham, to you and the committee for shepherding this through as quickly as you have. And it is exciting to see the walls go up. You can see the race to seal the building to the elements, because a lot of work has got to happen over the winter.
Yes, exactly. And the wall, I don't know if you've been by recently, but the walls, the north part of the walls are almost up already,
right.
So.
And I know they finished the drill, right?
What?
The 72 drills or something, I guess.
Yeah, I think that just about all the geothermal wells are in.
Yeah.
They're just the final piping and the tanks in there. So that's, and I should mention that this is not including the $3 million that we potentially will get back through the IRA, grants. So that that won't come to us, because it can't be applied. It'll go to the general fund. But that's money.
Well, it'll actually go. Yeah, that will actually have to be applied against the bonding as well. That'll be a reduction of $3 million against the bonding.
Right. So you won't borrow. It doesn't help you on the 99, but it will save you on the money, what you actually need to borrow. plus the
Right.
additional money we got for the, the increased reimbursement for the school. I think that was several $1 million additionally. So the actual bonded debt is going to be quite a bit less than for the school project than originally anticipated.
Right. So all good news, which is great. And fortunately we were able to deliver the school with a bigger footprint as well, right? That was prioritized. So I know there was some compromises made on the design and materials in order to get it within that budget, more limited budget. But the good thing is you're through that, really. So now it's the number of unknowns are shrinking rapidly, right, in the project. So that's great. And just excited to see, the progress that's happening. And appreciate all the leadership that you provided to the building committee. I know you were an important part of the library building committee, and you've been able to manage this one, which is fantastic. It's a great project, so we're very proud of it, and I can't wait to go to the ribbon cutting. So
Well, I do. We have a great team, great building committee. Many of which
Yeah.
are on the library committee, which is not a coincidence. And we have a great owner
Yes.
staff and a great contractor. So and the contractors people live in town. So there's some skin in the game for our contractor, and so it's all good.
Great.
Hopefully the cuts we made, I think most people will go through the building when it's finished and be thrilled with the quality of the building. So I don't think that the reductions we made, I don't think will be perceived to diminish the quality of the building.
And I know there's going to be some conversations about the solar panels and all that at one point in the future. That'll be a further discussion. But any other questions for Graham?
Oh, just thanks and carry on.
We'll see you at the ribbon cutting. Actually, I'll schedule a 3-month meeting. I'll do every 3 months. So I'll figure 3/4 of the way through, I'll be back, and maybe
in the wintertime, once it's closed up, can we get in it and go see it?
I think I can pull some strings for you. You gotta wear steel-toed boots.
You know a few people? All right.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
Great.
Thanks, Graham.
okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care.
Okay, item number 9 is a discussion to take action to accept a donation from Neighbor to Neighbor to Madison Youth and Family Services for $10,000 for Madison residents in need of food assistance, pending Board of Finance approval.
Who moved?
So moved. Second.
Great. And this is just, I know a lot of times we put these more routine ones in the consent agenda, but this was obviously a much more sizable donation. And I just want to highlight and thank again all the incredible work and assistance that Neighbor to Neighbor provides to Madison Youth and Family Services. And then Scott, just when you talk about food assistance, I just thought for this amount, maybe just remind people the need out there in the community and how this gets managed and distributed.
So thank you, and thank you, Neighbor to Neighbor, as a part of Madison Foundation. A huge supporter of our social services here in town. And 100% of the money that they donate to us goes directly back to the people in our community who need it. So Madison does have its own social services department. It's run under Madison Youth and Family Services. So these are adults, oftentimes parents, families that we are supporting that meet a criteria that's based on the state of Connecticut for fuel assistance. The money that this money is going to go directly to our discretionary fund. So this money is going to be used for emergency energy assistance. So when people have applied for state assistance and they're waiting or running into problems with that, and they maybe have gotten a warning that or that they're aware that they're out of oil or about to be out of oil, they can ask us for a one-time payment, and we will get them set up until the point where they can get their state assistance through their applications. This money also helps us in cases where we might need some emergency housing or other rather dire circumstances that people face financially, and allows us to help them.
Great, thank you. But always grateful for all the the Madison Foundation and all the support they provide. Any other questions by board members or no? Okay, with
Just
that, well,
a huge thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
this is unbelievable. I mean, they do this every year, so can't thank them enough.
And this is just a portion of what they will send our way. They
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
as you mentioned, regular donations to us that we use for food insecurity in the form of gift cards for people for food.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I know we're entering that time of year too with winter approaching and all that. It gets a little more challenging. So with that, and electricity bills, as we'll talk about later. With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right, thank you very much, Scott, for that. And then I'm moving on to item number 10 is to discuss the draft ordinance for Madison Youth and Family Services Board. So as part of our ongoing process with the new charter, we decided that there were certain boards and commissions that we needed to put into ordinance. Youth and family is actually required by state statute that we have an ordinance. And so Scott went back and kind of looked at the charge and came up with some recommendations on changes. I will be full disclosure, I haven't had a chance to go through this in detail. I think I saw a draft of this a while back, right? And then,
Yeah.
so it's not fresh in my mind, but tonight is discussion. And then typically then we'll come back for an approval process later. And then I think we're going to have to call a public hearing on a couple of these in like November to get them all approved so that we're kind of in that 2-year time frame with the new charter. I think we have technically till December to do some of these, but so with that, I guess I will turn it over to Scott. Do you want to just high level what changes might have been in here and what your model was for
Sure.
this?
So basically, we really just transferred a lot of the language we had from our bylaws into the ordinance. We did reserve a couple of sections that we would maintain as board bylaws, and I can explain to you why. I mean, the ordinance really had to do with the functioning of the board, which is as an advisory board. So our board is not really making decisions about programs, or I don't report to the board in a way that some boards will operate. The purpose of our board really is as a part of our educating and getting feedback from the community, and then back to from the community, and then from us to the community. So there were 2 sections that we kept in terms of like the duties of board members and how our student representatives also interact with our board that we want to keep separate in bylaws. And part of that really is if those change, we don't want to have to go back through this process to change an ordinance. Those are things that might change from time to time that really could be in the purview of the board. So we're drafting, suggesting that would be still separate as a part of the bylaws. The ordinance really just speaks to the functioning, the makeup of the board, which again was all consistent. I think the things that maybe we changed or revised, we made some very clear distinctions about the terms of our board officers. And we also made a clear distinction of quorum that we're setting at 50%. And I've had some conversations with, I've had some conversations with people around like, like the purpose of quorum and really why a standard like that is important for us. We're an advisory board, and even at times where we've not had quorum, there's always, for the people that are in the room, a desire to stay and listen and hear the report, which I'm often told not to do because then there's no minutes, that you can't have any sort of official decision-making, even if you're just, approving of things like donations. So if really our job is to hold the meeting, and that's what we're trying to do no matter what, to keep quorum, at a pretty reasonable rate, which half of their active members is how we would set it. It makes sense to us because that gives us our best chance of having a board meeting when we say, when we have them scheduled officially. So that's why we set that.
And a couple of just quick things, because I apologize that I had not refreshed myself
okay.
on this.
It's okay.
Because you mentioned alternates in here, but I think like the board, since we met, probably the board has kind of taken a perspective that unless you're a regulatory board,
Okay.
and voting on, where, you're voting on like, planning and zoning or whatever, where timeliness is critical. We're opting not to have alternates. So it keeps it easier in terms of trying to, staff, get enough membership on these boards too. But I think it was just philosophically, we thought that the alternate thing was more important if it was a regulatory board. And then I noticed you also had a treasurer position in
Yes.
here, because because if you're voting, because we ultimately accept donations. So is there do you have a responsibility for any type of specific?
The board, the treasurer, essentially tracks the funds that are raised by the board itself. So the board will ask for voluntary contributions from members to do things that usually have more to do with sending, gifts or significant, not gifts, but sending cards, doing things that are more appreciation for board members and students at the end of their time on our board. So that's really the treasurer is tracking the petty cash that is voluntarily offered by board members. It's like a sunshine fund.
Okay. Because I don't know if we have that position on any other board, that's all. But you've been having that though, right? This isn't a new thing. You've always had a treasurer. Okay.
We've had that
Okay.
If you're consistently having a problem getting a quorum, perhaps we should make the committee smaller.
We actually haven't.
Where I'm headed with this is I'm not sure that we can establish this as organized under Robert's rules and then arbitrarily have a different quorum. It may actually be true, but the reality is if you have regular absenteeism, perhaps we are oversubscribed, and a more straightforward way would be just to have a 7-member board and just have a simple majority plus 1. Have a simple majority as your quorum. I don't know. I'm not watching the attendance records of the meetings, but
Very well attended.
Yeah, we met we didn't have a meeting last year that we didn't meet quorum.
I think sometimes
why are we concerned about the quorum number?
I think sometimes, Bruce, it has a lot to do with the beginning of the meeting versus the end of the meeting too. So people will straggle in maybe because it's, work hours and, they had dinner and they're coming in late to a meeting and then, they want to get some of this business done at the beginning of the meeting and folks are maybe coming in at, a halfway point or whatever. So it's not always the full board there right at the top of the hour, so to speak.
And I think for us, and I appreciate what you're saying and how, if the boards are going to set a standard for quorum across all the board, your board is going to set the standard for other boards, then that's fine. I mean, I think we're happy to comply with that. I think when we were drafting this, the conversation at the executive level of our board felt this made sense for our board. So that's why it was drafted in there. I think where we're maybe a little more vulnerable for attendance issues when we get into the later parts of the year, your April and May meetings. So a lot of our board members tend to be parents. And when you get into that, you're into sports seasons and lots of activities outside of school. So that's where we've been stressed. And I think in my mind, it's just that you're setting the standard where, you just want to have the meeting and hold that as much as you can. As I said, in the past, when we didn't meet quorum, there's always people who want to continue. They want to have the meeting, even if it's an unofficial one. And we're just not able to do that.
So I think procedurally there are ways, but
as
we
an
can talk about
advisory
that
board
offline.
too. Say it again.
Oh, I just had a question about the liaisons. This was the first particular ordinance that I noticed where it said liaisons could be or not be members of the Madison community. Can we talk about what the reason for that is?
Please.
Staff, I'm assuming, right? A
Staff.
staff liaison. So
They don't live in
we have a
Madison.
lot of.
Well, then maybe we should just list it as staff liaisons because we have staff liaisons to other
point, Jen, because like
committees
I'm
and
the liaison
commissions
for the Board of
as well.
Selectmen and I live in town. So I wonder if it's a difference between, you know, our elected liaisons, which have to be in town, and then the folks that are outside the town.
Right.
And I think that
Yeah,
was the main.
and I totally get that with town
Yeah.
staff, but I just wouldn't want there to be confusion for the public thinking that, you know, if you were just a general member of the public and you were from Clinton or Guilford or Killingworth, that you could be a liaison. It's totally understandable for staff.
Right. I don't think we've ever seen language like that in
Yeah.
Yeah,
in a
well,
charge.
we've since Scott had started this, we've come up with more of like a template, you know, I will say. So I think because we've gone through a couple of other these now, so you're getting the benefit, Scott, of other committees coming
feel
before
very
you.
lucky.
So, and like I should have probably spent a little more time going back and looking and
All right.
comparing. So that's really, you know, we're trying to make things more consistent with all the boards, how
Oh, I
the,
understand.
you know, and all
Yeah.
that. So, I can get you some examples of how we've done it with some of the other ones, how we've written the language around liaison, because, you know, like, you know, we have a liaison to me is like more of a formal, you know, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance has liaisons. Those are appointed by the boards themselves. And then but the important thing here is you want to have two youth liaisons, right? That's really the appointment that you guys control, right? Because we
Well,
control staff and we control board, you
Yeah.
know, elected boards, but you guys want to make sure you get to students,
Yeah,
right?
so we have two student representatives that we could count as liaisons, and I think that's kind of the idea here, but also a liaison from the police department, that's been important to us.
Yeah.
And that's actually um, part of the state statute and requirements for the grant that some of the state grants we get. They do stipulate certain members of the public that have to be on your board. So I was trying to
Okay.
keep that in mind, not write it into the ordinance, but
Right.
knowing, you know, where we need to meet those requirements as well.
Right.
And we've had at times officially, maybe unofficially, a liaison from the parent representative council of the school. So that's the central operating group of the PTOs in town. So we've had that before. We used to have a liaison to the arts barn, and not a position that we've been able to maintain. And that's, I think, more of a capacity and time issue.
And that's where maybe like what we would want in the ordinance is more like anything that's required by the state, and then you know, we could then other liaisons and as deemed necessary or something, just
Yeah.
put some generic language in. And I was just thinking a little bit more about, you know, quorum. I mean, there's a couple different things. My understanding is quorum is to start the meeting, but I think if you lose, I think you can vote even if you lose quorum during a meeting. And that for some reason, I remember having this conversation, but that's something a point of question we can raise with Nancy, right? The other thing is maybe structuring your agenda in two buckets, right? So that, you know, for board members, you can say, look, you know, you can have, you know, the second part of the agenda is the voting agenda or something. And, you know, that's, I'm just trying to think, you know, ways to assist you in managing that. I mean, obviously you guys have been very successful, right? And you figure it out, but, I think there's ways that we can address it, because 12 is a lot, but I know there's a lot of people that like to serve on the board, right? So
Yeah, we haven't I mean, we do have openings now, but they don't tend to last very long these days. So the people do want, and I think it does, the more that you're able to engage a group, you know, the more the chances you're going to get some really active participants and people that are, you know, giving you feedback, wanting to be involved in aspects of what you're doing. My concern really of the smaller amount of a smaller board, you know, you're lowering, if you've got some people that maybe are interested and involved, but not as active in some ways, like you just, in my mind, you just want as many opportunities to bring people in and have them a part of what you're doing as possible. And the 12 was really set prior, like that's been our number now for a while. So I think that
I mean, that's the largest board I think we have. That's bigger than even planning and zoning is
Even with its
Uh,
alternates.
Seven, yeah, then they have alternates. So in terms of like seated board members, that's the largest board we have. And it's the only one that is not, an odd number, which I don't think you guys are doing controversial type of, you're not a regulator, so it doesn't matter as much. But
Right.
I'm just thinking about it. So
Well, given that it's an advisory board, and that might be called out in the preamble, that it's an advisory board, just for clarity. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering why the need for an executive committee that is empowered to make decisions on behalf of the board. It would seem that those important decisions would ultimately rest with you and your staff anyway.
It is, I think those decisions are about, how what we're bringing into the board meetings, the topics that we're bringing up. So like, it's those kind of decisions. Is somebody reaching out to a board member that maybe hasn't been showing up for a couple of meetings? So when we talk about the important business of the board and making those kind of decisions, I think at times too, if we've been asked to answer something, whether it's, something that's, like if maybe Peggy has asked me a question to run by the board, like if we've got to get an answer back to somebody who's asked, I may just be able to collect the executive committee and then deciding how they want to respond to something if I can't get the whole board together.
Okay, because the language, it says make decisions on behalf of the board.
Yeah.
When the executive committee deems that a decision is required before a legally called meeting can be held. That sounds like we're investing in this committee quite a bit of an authority. And again, I'm trying to reconcile that with the advisory nature of the board. And layering on that, I don't think we've seen anything like this in any of the other draft ordinances that we've seen. So this is new.
I think just in looking at some of the other boards, I think there's a lot of infrastructure here and structure that I think is helpful to guide the board, maybe partially because of its size. But I'm wondering too, as we're thinking about a template here, guys, like I wonder if there's some things that we don't necessarily even have to have in the ordinance itself, that they just do and can run on their own, as opposed to, I mean, do we need to, for a sunshine thing, do we need to have that in the ordinance as an example? Do we even need to note the executive
treasurer,
board
right, the
in here
treasurer
as an
assistant, yeah.
example? Like, I don't know, like some of this stuff it might be a on books versus off books kind of conversation. Because again, you probably want all boards to sort of operate the same way, but then, how you do it is up to you.
Right, it's kind of like the bylaws. It's like it's their own bylaws.
Ordinance versus bylaws, exactly, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Well,
we are endeavoring to do that. We do have it where so that when we're outlining the duties of the board members as well as the student liaisons, that's going to be a part of we're suggesting that be a part of our bylaws. As opposed
to I don't think we want to get in a position of telling each board how to operate. I think they should be figuring it out themselves, and what works for that board, what works for that board. I think we want to give them the basic structure.
Sometimes today's problem is the result of yesterday's solution. And if my memory serves me well, back when we got a very large federal grant many years ago, I think we had to beef up the how this board was run. And I'm wondering whether these are just artifacts of a past need that goes back more than 10 years. Scott Cochran, do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, so I think you're referring when we got the large DFC grant, and we needed we didn't have a defined drug and alcohol coalition. So we needed to create a board around what is now Made in Madison. That I think is what you're referring to. Honestly, we've had a board in place with bylaws since the 1980s, and they've been revised a few times over time. And a lot of what I put into here was just based on the last revision that we did, I think around 2017.
I guess the question, well, maybe we spend a little time offline on this, Scott, and
no, that's fine.
And then come back with a new draft. Because I'm sitting there thinking, and this is not as familiar with your board and what you're voting on at times, like what is being brought to the board. You know, because that to me is really where, depending on what those agenda items are, that to me is where the critical nature of how you structure everything, right? You know, if this is just kind of more, it's advisory, but are you recommending policies that the town follow? You know, that kind of stuff is where I think it is really important that you have a very transparent structure about how the policies are getting formulated, you know, where they're coming from, and then you know, you might have disputes amongst board members about some like the policy, some don't, you know, so that needs to be accommodated. So anyways, I'm just thinking out loud a little bit, but and I think we had some good feedback from, and then we'll go back to our template that we have, and what we've done with some of the other commissions, and then maybe come back with a revised draft. Does that sound good?
Yeah,
I mean,
it does.
90% of this will stay the same, but there'll be these little nuances that I think we need to kind of work on a bit.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think
Yeah.
that's the board did approve of this draft, but also were informed that this was a step in a process, and that we get feedback, and we'll be sharing the feedback in about 45 minutes because we have a board meeting tonight. So
Okay. Yeah, and you can just tell them that because we've been doing this all year in bits, dribs and drabs, we've kind of, you know, we're formulating a way to make more consistency with how these charges look, you know, so that we don't have.
I'll share with you one thing. When you talked about like what does the board actually vote on, and I mean it's a perfunctory that they approve of the donations that obviously are going to the town to approve. But the one thing that that stands out to me. So we had a number of conversations at the board level at the time that the state was considering the approval of the cannabis legalization, and they were knowing the efforts that we were making to inform legislators and inform the public of concerns of that legislation this is maybe a year or two before it was actually passed. And the board each time was, you know, discussed this, and they decided themselves that it was important to have a vote on a stance around whether or not the town, they would recommend to the town to support, or to me at the state level to support the legislation or to oppose it. So the board made a vote in terms of taking a stance to oppose the legalization of cannabis. Actually, a couple of times when those laws came up or that legislation came up for vote. So that's where they had utilized that advisory capacity and used the vote to show that they were all on the same page when it came to that stance.
Okay, great. No, that's helpful, a helpful perspective. Okay, well, with that, then we'll this will be we'll come back, you know, probably in an October meeting with a revised draft. With and you and I can spend a little time on it, and then and we'll go from there. Good.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 11. I'm going to read this, and I'm going to just amend the date on here. Discuss and take action to approve the 2024 Plan of Conservation Development as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Great, and I add the 24 because originally it was 23, and then the process took a little longer, and I think they wanted to kind of have this year in it, right? So, but obviously this was, and I'm not sure if Carol or Aaron are here. This is basically the draft. We kind of talked about this, I think, at our June meeting. And they went through a public hearing process. They made some minor modifications to it, and then I think was sent around to you yesterday, the latest version, which is not too substantially different than what you'd seen before. They may need to make some I think they're still going and making grammatical and reference corrections. Technically, we don't have authority over this, but we can endorse, the state statute requires us to endorse it. So I did use the word approve, which I was told maybe isn't the right word, but I think we could vote to endorse, but I think just approving it, that we agree with it. And it just goes on record that, you know, that we're supportive of what the Planning and Zoning Commission has accomplished here. So I don't know if
They're
there's
not
any
on
further-
either.
Pardon?
Yeah,
They're not on.
they're not on.
Yeah, okay, because I think that we kind of gave them our feedback before and had that public hearing, but so I don't know if there's any further discussion about it, but you're familiar with the document now, and I think it's a great document, and it's nice to see this kind of box checked, and so that we can move forward and they can start working on some of the changes that they want to make. I think the next step for them is going to be a look at the zoning regulations, so it's been a huge undertaking for them. Any other comments or questions?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, with that, then all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye, great. And then the final version will get posted on the website so the public can see that, the pretty version. I'm sure there'll be a much prettier version than I think what we'd sent around that still kind of had a markup on it. Okay, item number 12. Discuss and take action to accept a recommendation from the Ad Hoc Emergency Operations Center and Firehouse Expansion Building Committee to award a design build project contract to Munger Construction with a preliminary pre-construction services amount not to exceed $349,300 and to authorize the first selectman to sign all contracts and documents associated with this award as approved in the 2023-2024 capital improvement plan.
So move.
Okay, second, yep, great. Al seconds,
second.
okay. So this is basically an RFP was launched. I think you got a summary. Right now, we just want to approve enough money to go through the first design development piece of this so that we can then try to work within our budget. This is a exciting project and one that we received a federal grant for also. And so I think Sam is here. So if Sam wants to explain the process, we're going to have kind of certain steps along the process. So right now, that's why we only have the 300. This is not a $349,000 project. It's a $3.5 million project. So there'll be an opportunity to kind of, once we get a better handle on the project cost and the final design, then we'll have like the budget more fleshed out for that. But this is kind of the first step. Sam, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So we obviously put the RFP out. We had 5 responses back. We interviewed, I think we had 6. No, there was 5. And then we interviewed 4 of them. We cut out the top one because they were up around $6.5 million for the whole project. And then we ended up having a second round of interviews with each one of them, and we ended up deciding on Munger. And basically, I know Munger's a little bit higher up front with the design costs and the construction documents, but on the construction end of it, they're a lot cheaper. They're only 4%, and all their insurance costs and everything else are a lot less. And I think you guys have that document. I don't know if you need me to share it, but I could if you wanted to. So that's
that was included in the packet yesterday.
Yes, yeah. So that's why the committee is recommending to go with Munger, and obviously we have a long history with Munger. Through other projects for us.
And I will say they have an extensive experience in design build, which is different than hiring an architect and then going out with a project and then getting the bids, which we've seen can create a vast array of problems, because here we can we have more control to design to the project because they'll also be doing the construction piece. So it'll help us kind of, I think, get a better handle on the budget for this.
The goal is to stay within the budget, although, each contractor express concerns with the soils down there. Because it's so close to the pond, and, we had a soil report done back in 2008. So in the contract, as we awarded the contract, they talked with Ben, and, Ben Whitaker's been phenomenal helping us out with this, our new construction manager. In the construction document, the contract document will go forward in phases or tranches, as he calls them, with basically not to exceed, so that everybody would have to be satisfied with the first level before we move on to the next. And if we discover if something comes up where it's going to blow this whole project out of the water, then we have to make a decision whether or not we're going to proceed or not. And that's why we're kind of pursuing this way, because there's a lot of unknowns with the soils right now. Once we get out of the ground, it's pretty basic building, and then we can stay within the budget. But, you know, Peggy alluded to that Munger's a design build. They have architects on staff, they have engineers on staff, so everything's done in-house. So as we're designing it, we can sit down and figure out cost as we're going along and try to keep within that budget.
Am I reading this
Yep.
correctly that, oh, maybe not. So they're like middle of the road, right? 349 was sort of middle of the road in terms of bids.
Yeah, they weren't the highest, but they were a little bit higher. Like I know Nozzle was like 166 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, significantly lower.
But then there's another 153,000 in there that we thought should have been up front, and I don't know, Downs didn't put it up. So
That was gonna be more of a fee we were gonna see in the beginning, so we felt like that 150 really was up front, and then the percentage, you know, they were definitely, that's when you actually build the project, right? It's based on the project size. Munger was definitely one of the
yeah, they
lower.
were a lot lower, because we were looking at Bismarck, we bought Bismarck back, and they were at 8.5% once we started building the project.
Munger's at 4%, so they're the lowest from a percentage standpoint.
Yes, and then the Nozzle was at 6.5.
Yeah.
So, you know, once we went through everything and asked all the questions, everybody, the committee was comfortable with recommending Munger to the Board of Selectmen to move forward with this project.
So it'd be exciting to see this move forward. Any further questions for Sam?
No.
Will there be discussions in this process about maybe leveraging those existing, you know, the existing buildings that are obviously going to be replaced by the new bay?
Yes,
or just demolishing them?
That'll
Say it
be
again.
coming up next. So what we're going to do is we're going to, you know, obviously apply for a demolition permit. There's a 90-day waiting period because of the age of the buildings. We are going to offer them up to anybody they want to take them. It's at their own expense. So that, you know, up until deadline, and then we'll have to just tear them down. So we, you know, if we start advertising now, at least we got 90 days to, you know, for people to see if they're interested or not. Like I don't know what it's going to cost to move a building like that these days, but.
Well,
I
and I
think
actually
building is
asked
cheap.
town staff to look at it, especially the one in the front. Is the old fish market, I guess.
Yeah, it was this
and
market
so
that was across the street.
Yeah, so we're having an internal review to see if, you know, I mean, it's a really cool looking old building, you know, the small one in front. So if there is a way to repurpose that at one of our recreation, you know, areas or something. So we're looking at it. We also need to see what the cost would be to move it. So that's a possibility. And then I know Sam, the firehouse has made kind of a effort to a reach out also to see if anybody wants it. So it'd be nice to see them, you know, repurposed for sure.
Are they historical buildings? Are they considered, or is it just sentimental buildings?
I think it's sentimental
Yeah.
more.
So we did go through the EHP, the Environmental Historical Preservation Commission,
Yeah.
when we put the application in. It actually came through. That was one of the final steps for the grant award. So we're all through it, you know, went through all those steps already.
Okay, all right, well,
Okay.
I guess with that, then all in favor of approving item 12, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye, great, all right, thank you. All right, great, Sam.
Thank you, everybody.
moving on from there.
Hey, Sam.
All right, item number 13 is discuss recent town and school utility bills. And I put it on just as a discussion item right now because I know everybody's aware, we all got the surprise in July and August of our electric bills. The town is not immune to that as well. We are subject to the same public benefits charges that any ratepayer is subject to. And so we did get hit, really, both of our buildings did. And so I'd ask Peter to kind of dig through, first of all, just highlight what the current impact is, and then what would this mean, this agreement that's in place, the that with the public benefit charge, which is primarily 80% of it is due to a contract for nuclear power, basically, that was agreed on in 2017 by the legislature, that we have to buy a certain amount of electricity at a certain rate from this provider. And so, and basically we're making Eversource whole for the rate changes. So, because if they could buy it cheaper in the market, but we're making somewhere else, but they're buying it from there, then, you know, we have to supplement that. And that's kind of what has transpired into this public benefit increase. So that ends in April. But, you know, it's still going to have an impact possibly this year. The other countervailing of this, of what we've gotten in the bills, is we've done some things with our town campus, for example, with the new HVAC system, which is actually a lot more efficient. It relies on electricity, but we're already seeing a benefit from the new system because it's more efficient in how much electricity it uses to run. So we're not sure how this is all going to shake out. But I thought, Peter, if you could just walk through kind of what we saw as a town on our bills, and then what you're kind of back of the envelope projecting that could mean, you know, budget versus bill, that would be helpful.
Sure, happy to do that. Let me take you through. I'm going to bring up my screen. Let's see if we can. Okay, let's. I'm hoping you can all see this here.
Yep.
Okay.
You might want to.
Yeah, I'm trying to enlarge that, and it's there we go. That's there. That way. So this is a snapshot, and what I've done is if you look on the column, it says March 2024 rates. I took our uses there and actually applied the August 2024 rate to that, so that we had a really good idea of what, you know, we could see what the increase was. For the most part, if we can go down the line, you'll see there's some very minimal increases. But if you look at the yellow lines, this is where Eversource really can hit us hard. And again, this is the town campus. This is one picture of one town building. So the FMCC charge, which for those that don't know what that is, that's the federally mandated congestion charge, went up 1,233%, which added an additional $1,150 to our bill. And then the system benefits charge, which is the one that everybody is talking about, that went up 3,697%, but only added $456 to the bill. So you can see that we've got a total bill increase, or a total bill that's up 22%, but the delivery charges went up 48%. Do you have any questions on that so far about how our bills are affected?
Well, and I would just highlight that it is based on volume, right? So the public benefit charges, all these charges are based on volume.
Every single charge is based on how much power you actually use, and they go up and down accordingly to the power that you use. And these are basically all delivery charges. So this federally mandated congestion charge, part of this is related to generation, which is from Millstone. The transmission is the avoidance of collision of the system. So they move purchasing around so that they don't overload the system. And then the other part of it is renewable energy. Those are the three parts that are associated with that FMCC charge. And this goes across all the town buildings. Some town buildings, if you look at the top left corner where it says town campus distribution rate 35, we have some buildings at distribution rate 30. And then the school buildings are at distribution rate 57, I believe. So on a higher level, I don't have a sheet here, but I'm going to tell you what we've budgeted and where we're tracking to go to. I did figure it on a full 12-month schedule. So if we end in April, obviously it's to our benefit, and we won't have to. We may not be as short as we think we are. The school is tracking out to be at $872,809.18 We've budgeted $798,564 for a shortfall of $74,245.18. The town is tracking out to be at $383,592.62. We've budgeted $330,692 for the utilities for a shortfall of $52,962.
So, and this is an estimate, assuming the full fiscal year versus
That was going
going
to
through
June, that's
April.
correct, yes.
And this is also based on our past usage history,
That's
not
correct,
accounting
yeah.
for, you know, some of the changes that we might see some savings on
Yep.
the town campus, and then we'll obviously have some natural gas savings, which isn't a huge amount, but that would
Yeah,
also
so
offset the
I
deficit.
actually did some, I did some number work on that. We currently were anticipating 307,864 kilowatt hours plus the natural gas, which I roughly calculated out. The town had budgeted for just the town campus $64,651 plus $6,000 for natural gas for $70,651. The estimate with the new geosystem is using 257,220 or 260 kilowatt hours, which calculates out roughly to $54,024.60 and no natural gas. So there's a pretty good savings on that. And those are based off of today's electrical fees. So that's a real fee that we could expect.
So and all of this whole issue with the Millstone agreement, all that's all about the transmission and distribution, right? The supply side,
Transmission, yes.
right?
Yep.
So the supply side, we actually go out and
control.
we hedge. And so the good news for the town is we've been very proactive at hedging. So we've actually locked in over the last several years very favorable electricity rates. So we're not going to feel it as much as, you know, the consumer out there, perhaps, when there's been greater fluctuations because we hedge. We're currently in a hedge right now that will expire a year from now. And one of the reasons we kind of timed all this is we knew that our whole footprint is going to be very different a year from now, right? We're shutting down 3 buildings. And then we have
buildings are being shuttered. 3, yes, correct. Yes, yeah. Town Campus Learning Center, Ryerson, and Jeffrey.
So we'll be, shuttering 3 buildings. And then we're opening up, obviously, a brand new larger footprint school, but also much more highly efficient school that's also geothermal, right? So, so we're going to be working over the next couple of months and probably looking to hedge again, because the way the market is right now, it's actually it might be the right time to go out and start looking at another hedge. And then we're going to be forecasting. I know Peter's going to be spending some time looking at what our potential demand will be once all the plans get kind of sorted out with the different buildings and we have new buildings open. So, so on the supply side, I think we've benefited more than the general public, and because we've been able to do that. But unfortunately, we're subject to everybody else. And so just so you know, I've had a lot of we had Eversource in the office yesterday, and got our pound of flesh maybe out of them, or tried to, about this. I've talked to our legislatures about it. I've attended, it was a discussion today at our CCM meeting about the rates. It was discussed at our Council of Government meeting. So there's been a lot of touch points about this. And really, this is just, I will say, a unique kind of situation that happened from a regulatory standpoint. What could have been spread out maybe over 2 years was spread out over 10 months. But what I also learned was that, Eversource charges us interest the longer we spread out this debt, supposedly, that, the state has to them by this power purchase agreement that they have. So I think one of the drivers was to have this hit, and even though normally with rates, we want to see steady and low increases or no increases and consistency without spikes. that costs the taxpayer more money because you have to spread out over more, and then that actually drives up the financing cost for that. So that was kind of an interesting fact. I learned more about this. It's very complicated. I'm not seeing any relief necessarily that's going to be coming in the near term. But I do think we have some things in our favor that will be able to mitigate, the budget. We might just have a shortfall, and we really won't know the exact amount until the spring. So, anyway, so that was the purpose today, was really to kind of give a heads up that we are impacted and that there could be a need for an appropriation, in the springtime to account for a budget shortfall from this.
But I think importantly, what I was hoping to get out of this was just to sort of put a magnitude on it. In the absence of data, I had visions of this being millions of dollars, just based on my own electric bill. And it looks like we're really staring down between $100,000 to $120,000 shortfall, which we would fairly easily be able to cover out of the excess fund balance with a special appropriation when the time comes.
Yeah, that's correct, Bruce. Yeah, that would be the worst case scenario. And what we've done is we've put out to all the staff at the schools in particular to remove what are considered vampire power devices. These would be chargers, things like that they leave plugged in overnight. So those are all pulled out at this point. So we're really getting very serious about not having these power thieves being plugged in or turned on, which kind of became a habit over the past, and we're making sure that that's not happening.
Right.
Yeah,
on a bit of a tangent,
oh, go ahead.
I was distressed to get the second email from Eversource saying there's going to be another increase. And this increase is to pay for all of the money that Eversource handed out for vehicle charging stations. So I thank you to the legislature for allowing Eversource to hand out money that they then turn around and hit the ratepayers with.
So that is, and I don't have the data here, but the EV stuff is a very small amount of what this is. This is 80% millstone, and then there's a couple of other things in there, including EV. The next thing that we're going to see, what we're going to see now, the next thing I was told was the storm work that they had to do. They get paid back for that. So from Isaias and all these major storms where they had to spend a lot of money for restoration, that now becomes a debt that gets paid back over time through rates. That's where there really is going to be potentially something that might happen. And I don't know the timing of it yet. I don't know, Peter, if you recall, did we get any sense of when that would hit? Because they got to go through PURA to do it, but they're going to be asking to get paid back for all the storm recovery work that they paid.
Yeah, that does have to go through PURA, and that they were anticipating that to be a year down the road.
It was a year. Okay.
To Bruce's point, my understanding was that the rate increase for the EV, the upgrades that were necessary to support the EV charging stations, that was going into effect on September 1. So my understanding is that we had the rate increase that affected us over those really hot summer months, but then we were going to see another small increase instituted on September 1. So if these are our August bills that we're looking at here, we may see another increase, so it may be small on our September and/or October bill moving forward.
I didn't get into the level of anything specific going in this September 1st. I don't recall him saying anything about that, but I think one of the issues is because this is based on usage, right? It started out at peak usage. Like if this program, and I'm not excusing, or I'm just saying that I think everybody was so shocked because it started out in July, right? Which is usually peak usage month, right? Whereas if this had started out in January, you would have seen this. It's still going to cost you a lot of money, but you would have seen this ramp up to it, right? And so September, this next is obviously going to be a lower bill. I'm not aware of a specific new EV charge, but it could be there. I don't know. I have no idea. I do know though that we're likely to see another spike unless, depending on how the negotiations go with Pura on the storm. I'll be honest, I had no idea that this was all getting passed directly on to us over time. To the ratepayers, I should say. And then the other thing that was interesting when I asked the Eversource rep, I said, well, has Eversource considered any kind of waiver for public safety? Because we got a big rate increase from Connecticut Water last year that was approved by Pura, and they ended up ratcheting it back and not charging for public safety our hydrants, for example. Remember when we were going through the budget process, I went, oh my God, we're gonna have an $80,000 increase in our water budget because of this rate increase. They ended up ratcheting back on that, and they did not charge municipalities for public safety. So I did, said, well, why isn't Eversource taking those same kinds of considerations? And I think they're trying to get every penny back, period, that they spend. So they're getting paid back on, what they may consider an excess cost by having to buy power from Millstone. And then for any overtime or storm response to get paid for that, back for that. So anyway, but yes, the EV piece is a part of this for sure. I'm not trying to diminish it, but at the same point, in the bigger picture, it is a very small piece of the pie.
Mhm.
So I think but to Bruce's point, this isn't a, heart attack happening for us, fortunately. I know for some residents, it's been, quite substantial, but we've also, because of our hedging and everything, have been able to contain part of that bill by having a good hedging strategy in place. So that's helped us out a lot. And then hopefully we're going to benefit from these much more efficient buildings over the next couple of years, which is good.
Does all the
So I
hedging,
will,
just out of curiosity, Peggy, is that Stacy and the finance team?
Excuse me?
Who does all the hedging? Just curious. Is that our finance
so we
team
have
that does that?
no, it's actually the superintendent and myself and the facilities director have quarterly or semi-annual meetings with a energy consultant who lives here in Madison. He's worked for the town for a number of years. He's great. And we review where the market is. He makes recommendations, and then we make decisions on contracts, and we decide how long. And it's been a lot of discussion because we could have had a longer term contract. It would have cost us a little more, but probably still worked favorably. But we don't know what our demand is going to be with all the changes going on in our building. So this last round, we opted for the one that will expire a year from now. But it is really, I know Peter's just getting involved in this, but Bill McMahon and Tom Latour, who lives in Madison, been fantastic. And you might have met him at some point because he's been doing this for a really long time, I think. Bruce, I don't know if you know him.
We've seen him in front of the board years ago. And yeah, I would imagine that while our new energy demands are in flux and we settle in, we're just going to have to be conservative in those bets that we make. They'll still be better than buying, at the rate. But once we've got a little bit of at least one annual cycle with all of the new buildings under our belts, we'll be able to make some really good predictions about our need. Because as I recall, the contracts are around demand. You're buying a set amount of energy, whether you need it or not. So you don't want to overbuy. That's the trend.
And that was the concern, right? Because so it's only a partial hedge. I guess it's not all or buy. I'm trying to remember now the details of it, but and we'll be going through that discussion again. And maybe if the board wants, we can have Tom talk a little bit about that, towards the end of the year, because this is going to continue, especially being in New England and in Connecticut, an ongoing, operating expense. It's going to be really challenging for us. So, and by going geothermal, you're actually doubling down on electricity, but then you're so much more efficient in the electricity that you use, we hope to still see savings. So, so it might be worth having the, him come and talk a little bit about that and kind of hedging and how we kind of work through it every year.
Historical footnote, Bruce is correct. The Board of Selectmen originally hired Mr. Latore, I believe in 2008, because we needed to get the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen out of the business of predicting energy prices.
Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, Peter's been on 1 or 2 calls with him too. You need to know this market really well, right? And that's why I think it's kind of hard for residents to figure this out, because now you have the option of making your own hedging contract, right? You can go in, and I did it, Constellation, I locked in and to a new supplier and everything, but this market is very complicated, and it's also impacted by all the other energy markets. So it's not like it's just a separate standalone thing. You're also, in the natural gas market and the oil market all impact the electricity market also. So it's good that we have an expert. I will say that. Any other questions for Peter? No? Okay, great. Okay, so item number, actually, while Peter is here, if it's okay, I'd like to just address item number 15. These aren't voting items, just because, do you have the latest version of this town seal proposal? Or
Let me get it called up. I'll get it right here for you in a minute.
I have the one that Rita did. Did we get one back from them?
That's the most recent one that Rita did.
Okay, so I can go ahead and screen share. So I just wanted to
Okay.
run by, we finally got around to our blue wall, and we talked about putting the town seal behind there. So I wanted to show you a visual image of what that would look like. And then we would take James Madison and put James Madison back in that room on one of the sides. And this would be more of an appropriate thing behind, size-wise, behind the Board of Selectmen. Because I know we've gotten some questions about this at the June meeting, and I thought, time flies, right? It really has been over a year and a half since we painted the wall, so it was time to do this. I will share my screen, and I think yeah. So this was what we were thinking, and we were struggling with, do we get a painting? Do we do but Peter, actually, there is what is this made out of? It's like a screen printed thing, like a sticker, basically, right? That would go
It's
up
a
on
large vinyl decal, yeah.
So
Amazing.
this would be it's not quite the colors and everything. This was what Rita had put together as a visual. But this was the thought, was putting the seal behind there on the wall. So I want to get your thoughts, as to if this would be, and then we would, like I said, we put James Madison on the side, to the right of this, probably where that other map is or something. So he's in the James Madison room. And then we would have the town logo.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
or I mean, we could also just move the other town logo painting that's near the flag, because you don't need 2 town logos in the room anymore. We could hang that elsewhere and then have James Madison over there. But I do like the logo in and of itself, just being consistent with what we have on all of our welcome signs and, whatnot around town.
Yeah, maybe just put James Madison where the logo is, and that makes it easy.
Yeah.
Okay, and I do want to talk about the colors. You just raised a great point, because we used a gold leaf and everything with our signs. So we might want to try to match the signs a little bit more. I think this was just done with, well, this is our V card, right? Peter, so this is
Just
kind
took
of
this off. I believe this off the letterhead.
okay.
Okay.
So anyway, so this is the concept. We'll refine this, but everybody's good with that then, if we do something similar to this?
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. All right, it'll be good. I think it'll look nice, and just, and then James Madison will return to the James Madison room. So, okay, great. I think that's all I wanted to just run that by everybody, make sure they're good with that. And with that, we'll stop sharing. And then I think now we're, we got to go back to item number 14. Discuss and take action to approve the charge for the Madison 200 American 250 Steering Committee.
Moved.
Second,
Okay, we had talked about this at our last meeting, and I don't think I got any specific comments back on it, but here to take changes or suggestions. No?
Nope.
Everybody's good with it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move forward with the appointment process, so we can get the seats, hopefully the committee seated towards the end of October. So with that, I guess all in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Great, exciting to see that move forward, and then we'll put out a call for some, we have a couple public members. And then with that, I guess we're on to item number 16, citizens' comments. Don't think we have too many people left.
Really?
Nope, nobody's on. Nope, okay, great.
We could just make
Well,
Matt
that's not
talk.
true. Matt's on.
We can make him talk.
You should just give him a briefing, John, rather
Oh,
than have him
he's
sit through the
been
whole meeting.
watching the whole thing.
Sitting next to you? Is he just right next to you right now?
No,
yeah, that's right.
no, he's in a different part of the house, but he's a diligent observer of our meetings.
Good. He's always there, probably cooking dinner, hopefully. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All
yeah.
right. All right, with that, then I guess, hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
have a
Have a
one.
good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.